let me give you a brief overview of what Horizen is and aims to achieve. Horizen is a layer 0 public blockchain that enables the zero knowledge network of blockchains powered by the largest node system and a massively scalable cross-chain protocol, namely Sendu. Horizen offers tools for developers to custom build private and or public blockchains. Also has dApps with a high level of flexibility, which is yet unmatched by others. On top of that, Horizen is also EVM compatible through its sidechain, which they recently launched, named Ion. By building on Horizen, developers have the freedom to fully customize their blockchains, including consensus, speed, privacy, and crypto economics. Blockchains built on Horizen produce massive throughput without compromising decentralization. For the people that do not know me yet, I'm Leon, and I've been a community moderator at Band Protocol for the past few years. Next to my work at Band, I work as an account manager in a retail company within the Netherlands. On that note, we had some tragic news today regarding Binance that we are not able to trade or deposit there on that end. So I'm really sad that we have the regulations here that Binance leaves our country. Either way, I'm happy to have everyone tuning in here today to discuss the integration we have between Band and Horizen. So, warm welcome, Spencer. How are you doing?
I'm great. I am great, and you know, I'm very happy to be here and to speak with you all.
Sure. Let me give a brief overview of Spencer. Spencer is the VP of Ecosystem Growth at Horizen Labs, the company behind Horizen. So yeah, I'm really glad to have that you have the time to be able to join today's AMA. Yeah, to take time off your busy schedule to do so. I'd love to hear a bit more about your background and what brought you to Horizen or crypto in general in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been with Horizen Labs for about a year at this point. Prior to that, I ran a marketing agency called Good and Gold, and we were mostly in the consumer packaged goods space, doing a lot of growth marketing and things along that line. But my real background has always been working within early adoption tech. I was in 3D printing at a company called MakerBot for a long time, doing a lot of things around there, as well as in the ed tech space and in the STEM tech space as well. Even as I was doing more traditional advertising, I was always, an early adopter and very involved within the both blockchain and kind of crypto world, doing quite a lot of consulting as well on that side on various projects. And about a year ago, I joined Horizen Labs as it started to kind of gear up for the release of our EVM Eon, which I know we'll talk about, quite a bit today. I'm just excited to be here, and I'm excited to, be obviously in the space, to be with Horizen, and to be building and kind of gearing up for the next evolution.
Sweet, cheers for the introduction there. I can only imagine we're at the forefront of some really amazing tech or blockchain in general. On that note, could you elaborate a bit more on my short explanation about what Horizen is, what it matters, and why it is important, to name a few top of mind key things?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you gave a really great summary of it. So first of all, thank you for that. So Horizen is ultimately a what we call a ZK-enabled network of sidechains. The Horizen mainnet has actually been around for, the equivalent of decades within the space. And was originally a fork of Zcash, which is a fork of Bitcoin. It was originally, started as a privacy project. It is no longer, a privacy project, and it is no longer a privacy token. Things like the shielded pools that sort of enabled that, are either gone or going away. And now we are much more focused on user security, user safety, as well as what we call selective confidentiality and security. So our roots are very much still within the project, even though the exact aim and sort of way that that's brought through has changed quite a bit over time. But ultimately the real goal of Horizen is this ability to have multiple side chains, right? And Eon is the first EVM compatible one, but it is likely not going to be the last, certainly. And the ability for each of those side chains, for example, to have their own consensus mechanisms, the ability for those side chains to be able to communicate with each other, to be able to validate transactions going back to the main chain, to be able to take advantage of ZK and zero knowledge in order to selectively send things back and forth across chains and back to the main chain. And really to kind of bring things forward from there.
Yeah, I see. Great, great explanation. Cheers for that there. On that note, actually, sort of less specific in my opinion, but you also hear like the term the Ethereum killer. It's going to be that one chain that rules them all, sort of the eye of Sauron. I personally believe in a multi-chain world, but what's your view on this matter?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, 100%. Speaking, on behalf of Horizen, the answer is maybe 105%. Yes, even more so. The future is multi-chain, and the future is multi-chain not just within our ecosystem, but within other ecosystems. A lot of certainly what we are doing with Eon is making sure that we have those connections, both through bridges, through open conversations, through collaboration. Ultimately, it is going to be a multi-chain world. Ultimately, there is space for many chains, and ultimately, there's reasons for different chains that do different things. I think that in the past, you really saw a lot of change trying to be, like you said, that Ethereum killer. I think that what we have realized now is that different chains have different uses, right? And you see that both in terms of, separate L0s, L1s, and as well as separate L2s. You'll see that within our ecosystem as we move forward, where you are likely to see, chains that really are for DeFi as opposed to, the potential of L2s that are really for gaming. And everything has to connect, both internally and externally. And ultimately, I think that we talk about multi-chain generally as from a user perspective and the ability to bridge assets across chains, for example. But I also think it's from a collaboration perspective, and that ability to talk and share and build together, and the idea that really a rising tide is going to lift all boats within the space.
Yeah, I can only agree, honestly. I touched on it already a little bit earlier, but next to Horizen, we also have a fully EVM compatible sidechain, which recently you have launched, which is also a smart contracting platform. It's named Eon. Could you tell me a bit more about that? I know that there's also a bug bounties worth up to $75,000 up for grabs there. So probably interesting for people tuning in to hear more on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like we mentioned, Eon is fully EVM compatible sidechain. It is on beta. Right now, it's on our test net. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say beta. I should say it's on our public test net right now, which is named Gobi. It will be going to mainnet soon, and there will be, kind of a technical launch where people can get in and start to use it. With more of a public beta launch happening a bit later this summer, as we continue to add things like partners, as we continue to be working with folks and ensuring that there's liquidity on chain and that it really is a highly usable, highly active chain. Bug bounties, as you mentioned, are certainly a large part of that. We're working with our partner Immunify on that, and I encourage everyone to check that out. And it's very important for us to make sure that we have a secure, safe, usable chain. And so to that end, there are bug bounty programs. There are also grant programs, the first of which is going on now with our partners at BuildBox, which I encourage folks to look up. And right now, the hackathon that is going on there is centered around escrow and escrow contracts, but there will be many more of those going forward as well. At the end of the day, what we always talk about internally is that there are, about 200 or so EVMs out there in the world, but really at the end of the day, there are about 20 to 25 ones that are really usable in any way, shape, or form on a broader scale. And our first and initial goal is to make sure that we have a vibrant, usable ecosystem on the Horizen side, and then on the Horizen Labs side, we're doing what we can to be a builder within that ecosystem, and to make sure that we're getting to where we all want to be.
Gotcha. Seeing as you said that there are over 200 EVM compatible contracts, so to say. Can you perhaps tell me what Eon makes different from other smart contracting platforms? There's obviously a lot of competition and funding behind some of the big names. Competition is never a bad thing by nature from my personal experience. It's never a zero-sum game. I'm just curious to hear what your take is on that. What makes Eon different?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And, I'm going to start with kind of what I always tell everybody when they ask about differentiators, which is that, at its core, an EVM is a runtime environment, right? And a lot of the purpose is that it's not differentiated, right? It's a standard, and, it's compatible with, things that are launched on EVMs across the board. Now, where the differentiators really lie are in terms of the network that it's built on, right? And, the different layers that go on top of it. So, for us, there are a couple of things. One is the network that it's built on, the fact that it's built on the Horizen network, that it benefits from the ability to have sidechain to sidechain communication, from Zendu, which I know we'll talk about a little bit more as we move on. And from that sort of ability to be communicative with other side chains. It also benefits from its consensus mechanism, which is Ouroboros Praus, which we can get into for a long time and talk about the reasons behind that decision. But that's one side of it. The other side of it are the things that are built on top of it. We are very, very focused on having a best-in-class developer stack. We are very focused on making sure that however people want to build on it, that we have those options open, that we are not limiting it, in the way that some competitors certainly are, where there's a limited set of development tools, making sure that we have as many SDKs, IDs, APIs on one side, and two, that we're supporting and integrating all of the best-in-class oracles like Band, as well as indexers and so forth, as well as making sure that there are partners who are providing solid liquidity on chain as well. The other thing that really does stand out around Horizen and Horizen Labs is Horizen Labs has one of the most impressive cryptography teams in the world. And, our cryptography team, one, has contributed a lot to the space, have been integral in things like Poseidon 2, for example, and other, cryptographic and hash functions. And the way that really helps to differentiate Eon is at first going to be in terms of the on-chain uses for zero knowledge. There's, quite a lot of talk in the zero knowledge space and how it is used in terms of scalability, for example, and that's obviously something that's always on the front of our minds, but also in terms of confidentiality and in terms of security and in terms of having the APIs on Eon and the developer libraries on Eon that allow developers to take advantage of the benefits of zero knowledge. And you'll see that whether that's through options for digital identity, whether that's options for things like private voting that we're very excited about, and other kind of ways that zero knowledge can be incorporated into kind of daily on-chain life.
That's quite an explanation. Thanks for that. I can only add on that for Bander side, I've seldom met such high-level known crypto or blockchain tech guys within the space, and then specifically based on oracles. Speaking about oracles, we at Pamperco facilitate our decentralized oracle solution to the Eon ecosystem. Could you touch on what this means for Horizen and give a keen explanation on the formal integration as we advance?
Yeah, so oracles, as you all know, are really central to any functioning ecosystem, right? And as we were looking for sort of launch partners, within the Eon ecosystem, it was really, really, really important to us to have, sort of expansive, stable, usable, well-known oracles on board that we know one can obviously provide everything in terms of price feeds, in terms of programmable scripts, in terms of cross-chain compatibility, and kind of getting towards that multi-chain world that we talked before, and the ability to get information that's usable and sortable and easily accessible to developers. And so, Band was an obvious choice. And as we looked at kind of all of the oracles, Band was one that obviously stuck out. One, because of the trust that we obviously have in it, the trust that we believe a lot of people rightfully have in it. And really its ease of use, at the end of the day. So we're super, super excited to have Band on board. We're really excited to see what people build with it, both from a new perspective and in terms of what comes from other chains and sort of enters the Horizen ecosystem that takes advantage of Band. But that's sort of the long and short of it, that it was very, very important for us to have best-in-class oracles, and Band meets all of the criteria from that perspective.
Sweet, thanks for the kind words there. Coming back to Horizen, I noticed that you have over 45,000 nodes around the world, which I personally think provides a lot of value to your network to enhance security and also I think a solid infrastructure. Not a bad technical feature to have, to be actually so distributed. Could you perhaps elaborate more on this for me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so Horizen has the largest and most distributed node network of pretty much any chain. And to your point, that adds quite a lot in terms of decentralization for the mainnet. It adds quite a lot in terms of uptime. It adds quite a lot in terms of security, and in preventing bad actors and preventing attacks and so forth. And that's obviously something that is very important to us, and it's very important in terms of cross-chain communication. It's very important in terms of the mainnet, and in making sure that there's that solid, secure layer on that side. I do, want to mention that each side chain, can have its own consensus, and will rely on the mainnet in varying ways. So, I think that decentralization is the ideal and the goal, but, you may see in the future side chains that benefit from centralization, for example, and have their own consensus and have their own, node networks that tie back into the broader one. But, in general, yes, the fact that we have all of those nodes and that we have that active community around them, it's highly important to the security of the network, and we feel confident in saying that it's something that differentiates us and puts us in the best in class category on that side.
Oh yeah, definitely, no doubts. From a technical perspective, though, what are some of the things that you're doing on top of your blockchain to make sure your protocol brings a fair value to end users and obviously also to developers?
Yeah, and again, a really, really great question. The first thing is obviously making sure that we have best-in-class oracles like Band, and the ability to do that. The second thing is that in terms of bringing fair value to developers, it's making sure that we do have that best-in-class developer stack. They're beyond the Oracle side, from an indexer side, Covalent, the graph indexers such as that, which obviously help quite a lot on that side. From the SDK and API side, obviously all the standard portions from web.js on forward, from partnerships with protocols and companies such as ThirdWeb and Flare.dev that make deployment easier, from working with RPC node providers and a lot of the best-in-class folks there, such as Anchor, and making sure that just the access is there for developers, right? We want this to be a place where it's easy for developers to come on, to build what they want, and they don't feel restricted in any way on that front. From the end user perspective, a lot of it is making sure that there is as full and broad wallet support, whether that be through Cobalt, our own wallet, which will be able to interact both with our EVM chain and the mainnet, which is obviously very important. Making sure that there are as many ways to on-ramp and off-ramp from the network as possible, be that through, fiat on-ramps, be that through working with exchange partners and making sure that folks can get, ERC20 compatible Zen and be able to bridge that directly onto the network. And that's very exciting as well. And that's all from a technical perspective. And, I don't want to get too off track from your question, but I think that the social layer perspective is equally as important. I highly encourage everybody to go through and go to eon.horizen.io and take a look at the light paper and take a look at the code of ethics, which you'll be hearing quite a bit more out of. And, in terms of the projects that are being supported from either the Horizen Labs or the Horizen side, we want to make sure from a user perspective and from a developer perspective that this is the place for projects that have their users' safety in mind, that have their own safety in mind, that have ethical behavior in mind, that this is the place for them to do that.
Gotcha, thanks, Ben. And between all of that, you also have your own token. It's called Zen. Could you perhaps tell everyone what it's mainly used for and how does it come forward in all of the overall ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. So Zen is, it's the sound money of the ecosystem, to borrow a term from, the Ethereum universe. It is the gas for anything that you are doing on the main chain or on Eon. It is a token that has been around for quite some time, that is available on every kind of major exchange, has widespread accessibility and availability, and will continue to be used obviously as the gas token, as the token that secures various networks, on here. And I think that it is actually a big advantage for us, to have a token that we know is sound, has been around for a long time, has gone through the battles, has survived through multiple, market cycles, certainly. And, having a kind of new level of utility within Eon is exciting for it.
Cool, cool. Yeah, time is usually of the essence. When the longer you're in crypto, the more yeah, quote unquote respected you are. Else you wouldn't be around anymore. Moving back to
Yep.
yeah, moving back to Eon. From what I read personally, you launched it in-house, meaning you yeah, use your own resources, being it built from scratch. Can only imagine that that takes a lot of time. But what is the roadmap moving forward for Q3,
Mhm.
Q4? Can you perhaps share what everyone can look out for?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I had mentioned before, today testnet is out there and live, which is very exciting. There will be a sort of alpha and tech release of mainnet coming soon. And I obviously encourage everybody to follow us on our social channels and on Discord and so forth. If they're interested, certainly in kind of the early access to that. As we head sort of later in the summer, there will be, more of a kind of beta release. And then we will be doing what we kind of call the stable or mainnet release of the ecosystem, as we feel comfortable that there are the partners fully in place, that we're starting to see the liquidity fully in place on the chain, and kind of moving from there. That's on one side. On the other side, a lot of the work to date has been on, kind of all the things that allow for a usable and a stable ecosystem. So, as I mentioned before, a lot of the work to date has been on making sure that we have the appropriate and solid Oracle partners, indexer partners, RPC node partners, the initial bridges and swaps, on one side, and then making sure that we're doing everything that we can in terms of getting to the place of grant programs and bug bounties and hackathons and things that bring other developers into the ecosystem. Now, as we're moving past that part of the roadmap, really a lot of it is on, making sure that we're doing everything that we can to bring in other parties into the ecosystem. Making sure that there is that solid DApp layer, right? Making sure that there is a best-in-class DeFi ecosystem. Starting to explore what might happen on, a layer 2 side. What may happen on a gaming side is, a big initiative that we're exploring. And there is a public technical roadmap, on the Horizen.io website, which I encourage everybody, to talk about. But certainly from my side and from the growth side, the roadmap moving forward is continuing to build out on top of that ecosystem and to be moving towards, greater decentralization of that ecosystem as well.
Yeah, I see. Before we move to some of the Q&A questions, I have one more feature I wanted to touch on. There was so much to talk about, but yeah, just picked the ones I found most attractable. You said it earlier, but you also have a cross-chain platform called Sendu, which is completely decentralized without relying on any third-party validators. Could you
Mhm.
perhaps, for everyone tuning in or going to re-listen to this AMA later on, tell anything about that feature?
Yeah, so Zendu is at the core of when we talk about a ZK-enabled network of blockchains, right? So it's a ZK snark-enabled cross-chain transfer protocol. It relies on ZK snarks to allow for cross-chain communication, cross-chain transfers. That are instantly verifiable without any third party, right? So, what it means is that you can validate things across chains, you can send information across chains, both, maximizing throughput, which is obviously great, maintaining low transaction fees, which is obviously also great. And being able to kind of take advantage of selective confidentiality, on that side. So Zendu, it really is, at the core of the cross-chain abilities of the network and sort of what is being built here. It really is the core of the ability to spin up additional, chains and side chains throughout the network. And it's something that, we're excited about seeing, one, as it grows, and two, as people are really coming in and beginning to use it.
Sweet, thanks, Spencer. Personally, I think we covered a broader overview of the formal integration we have between Horizen and Band, also ongoing developments for Horizen specifically. Did I miss anything on you want to touch on, or can we move to some of the Q&A questions from both communities?
I think that we've hit a lot of the big points, and I'd love to hear some of those Q&A questions.
Sure. Let me check them up. So we had a question from a user who asks, could you explain the concept of sidechain in the context of Horizen? How does it enhance the functionality and flexibility of the network?
Yeah, so a sidechain in the context of Horizen is it's a chain that has been built through the Blaze SDK. It is a chain that it sits obviously to the side, right, of the main network, but it's important to note that side chains on the Horizen network can continue to exist, for example, without the main network, right? So there is the functionality and optionality of having things validated all the way back through the Horizen mainnet. But, as we move forward, we're getting to a point where there are going to be, ceaseless side chains. So what that means is that if an enterprise was to create a permission side chain of their own, as people build additional, EVM compatible side chains or WASM compatible side chains or Solana VM compatible side chains or whatever they may be. And if something was, not that we expect anything to ever happen to it, but if something was to happen to the Horizen mainnet, those side chains could continue to function on their own, right? And that's really, really important and a very key differentiator, we believe, that, there is this ability to selectively have things very closely connected, but they only need to be if they need to be, right? And the ability to have sidechains that both can have their own consensus mechanisms, that can continue to function with or without the main chain. Those are the two things that are really, really enormous, I think, in terms of what we're bringing to the table.
Quite an answer. Thank you, Spencer. I have another question from a user who asks, what does the Horizen team plan to achieve with the project in the long run, and what makes the project stand out amongst its competitors? I think we covered the second part earlier, but the first question is interesting. What do you plan to achieve in the long run, in short?
Yeah, so in the long run, I think it's really important to be able to have a really solid, forward-facing and flexible and composable multi-chain system, right? As I kind of mentioned before, Eon is an EVM compatible sidechain, but really in the future we may see, like I said, WASM compatible sidechains. The ability to support multiple runtime environments, the ability to have sidechains that really are specific to enterprise and different public use cases, and really to be able to kind of fulfill on that vision of a multi-chain ecosystem, as well as one that plugs into other ecosystems as well and has close relationships with them. That is really a large part of it, and also the other kind of long-term vision in terms of the project is really, to be a place where it really can be a place to verify, right, proofs, and to expand what we're doing on the cryptographic side, and to be able to verify proofs, whether they're coming from on chain, from other chains, from off chain, and I think that that's going to be a really highly important part of our future as well.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Thank you. I have one more question before I think we have some time left for if there are any questions from people tuning in. What's Horizon focused on right now, and what measures are the team putting in place to achieve them?
Yeah, so Horizon is focused on Eon right now, and we're focused on the launch of Eon and the launch of the EVM side chain. That is something where the team the teams are very, very, very highly focused on making sure from the technical side that we get to launch, and from the the ecosystem side and business development and partnership sides, that we're kind of bringing forward as full and usable and diverse and vibrant of an ecosystem as possible. And that really is the full focus right now.
Gotcha. Thanks again. Should we wrap it up here?
I think we can wrap it up from here.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks
Thank
again,
you, everybody.
Spencer, for joining. And yeah, have a great weekend, everyone.